Hi, this is Mrs. Kolonicki, and we're going to go over your quarterly review packet. Okay, let's start with the first question. First question says, 2 points are plotted on the number line below. Okay, so you see W right here, -6, and X to be 4. Now it says, which of the following has the greatest value? It means which of these choices is going to equal the greatest number? Okay, well, I have to replace what W is for -6 and what X is for 4. So I'm going to rewrite this first one. This first one's going to say -6 minus 4. And I'm going to do that for all 4 choices. First one's going to say -6 minus 4. Next one's going to say 4 minus -6. Notice I use parentheses here to separate my double signs. And the next two, I have -6 plus 4, and I have 4 times -6. Now what I have to do is I have to figure out what these equal. So in your calculator, you're going to find out what each one equals in order to figure out which one is the greatest. Okay, first one is equal to -10. Next one is equal to +10. Next one is equal to -2. And the last one is equal to -24. So according to this, my final answer is going to be choice B, +10. Second question, what is the value of the expression below? The value. Okay, in order to do this one, I'm going to need to use order of operations, PEMDAS. Which one do I follow first? Well, I see 2 operations here. I see subtracting and multiplying. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do multiplying, because multiplying becomes first in PEMDAS. So I'm going to do 6 times 3, and I'm going to get 18. Oh, forgot my 1. There we go. And now I'm going to rewrite it as 12 minus 18. Okay, well again, in my calculator, I can just do 12 minus 18. If I had to do it by hand, I'd have to use LCI. But my calculator will give me the answer automatically, and that's going to be -6. So the answer for number 2, what's the value of this expression? The value of this expression is -6. So far, so good? Okay, moving on. Number 3, the temperature at 6 p.m. was 15 degrees Celsius. The temperature dropped 2 degrees Celsius per hour. What was the temperature at 4 a.m.? So I have different hours. It started at 6 p.m. and it ended at 4 a.m. And then I have temperatures. It started at 15 degrees Celsius and it dropped 2 degrees Celsius per hour. So the first thing I need to figure out is how many hours that was. So I start with 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. How many hours is that? If you count them, starting at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 10 hours. So my temperature dropped for 10 hours. Right there, from 6 to 10. 10 hours. According to this, it dropped 2 degrees per hour. Alright, so 2 degrees per hour means it's going to drop 2 degrees per hour. It means I'm going to have to multiply 2 times 10, which means the temperature is going to be dropping about 20 degrees. Okay, dropped means subtract. So I'm going to have to subtract 15 degrees Celsius minus 20 degrees Celsius to get my final answer. Again, in your calculator, that will be done for you, and your final answer should be -5 degrees Celsius. So question number 3, the answer is letter F, -5 degrees Celsius. Number 4, which list shows the integers in order, again, from least to greatest? Just by looking at my choices, I can already cancel out some, and that's helpful for you when you're doing a multiple choice question. If I look at this list, all the lists have the same numbers in them. I see negative numbers, I see positive numbers, and I see the number 0. Automatically, I can cross out 2 choices that don't have negative numbers first. Choice B and choice D. Notice they have the 0 first. And we know that negative numbers are smaller than 0. So these are out. The last two choices I have, one has a negative 8 as the smallest number, and one has negative 5 as the smallest number. If you think about money, owing somebody $8 comparing to owing somebody $5, owing somebody $8 is worse. So that is why negative 8 is going to be the least number on this list. So answer 4 is choice A. Make sure you have everything written down. Number 5. The table below shows the results of 3 plays in a football game. What is the net result of the 3 plays? Another word for net result is just sum. So all I'm really going to do with these guys is I'm going to add them up. And again, your calculator can add these for you. What I would do if I didn't have a calculator is I would add the positive numbers first and then worry about the negative number. Positive 12 and positive 15 is positive 5 is positive 17 minus 9. Again, calculator will do it for you. You'll get positive 8 yards. So after these 3 plays, you would have gained 8 yards. So number 5's final answer is choice H, 8 yards. Okay, you can pause the video right now and work on the next page. And you can play it as soon as you're ready. Okay, welcome back. Number 6, what is the value of the expression below? Okay, so again, I have to use, there's multiple operations happening here. There's dividing, there's adding, there's another dividing. I see some absolute value bars and I see negative numbers. We have to use PEMDAS again. Don't forget, parentheses also count when you're talking about absolute value bars. So even though these aren't technically parentheses, they're going to count that way when I'm talking about PEMDAS. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do what is inside these parentheses, inside these absolute values. I'm going to put some absolute values up here. Oh, there we go. And I want to do what is 48 divided by negative 6. That's going to, answer is going to go in these absolute values. Well, that's negative 8. Yeah, here we go. And now I also have to do what is negative 35 divided by 7 and put that answer in these absolute value bars. That's negative 5. So now I have to do my absolute values. What is the absolute value of negative 8? That's positive 8. The absolute value of negative 5 is positive 5. And the sum of those two answers is 13. I'm sorry. That really should say positive 13. So please correct that on your paper. And don't worry if you were stressing out about it. It should be a positive 13. So that's my mistake. So final answer for number 6 is a positive 13. And again, error on that one. Next question, number 7, says when A is negative 9 and B is negative 6, which expression has a value of negative 3? This is really similar to one of the ones that we had done before. Again, I have to substitute in the value of A, negative 9, and the value of B, negative 6, into each of these expressions. So, here's the first one. A, negative 9, plus B, negative 6. So I'm going to write negative 9 plus negative 6 next to that first problem. Funny enough, the second choice is very similar to this one, except it's the absolute value of the answer. So I could just write the absolute value of negative 9 plus negative 6. Same thing. I guess we'll start on working on these. Negative 9 plus negative 6 in your calculator should get you negative 15. Now, what happens if I have... Don't even have to do the math really on this one. I just take the answer, negative 15. My final answer on this one will be positive 15. So again, none of them have the value of negative 3. So I gotta cross these out. These are not my answer. Now I'm gonna go into the third one. A minus B, negative 9 minus negative 6. Notice the double negatives, so I use parentheses. In my calculator, I do that, and that will get me, negative 3, which is what I was looking for. So my final answer for number 7 is choice H. -9 minus -6 is -3, which is what I was looking for. Another question about greatest value. Number 8, which of the following has the greatest value? Again, I can't tell right now because I have all these absolute values. Absolute value of 3, well, that's just 3. 0 doesn't really change because I have no absolute values. The absolute value of -5 with a negative sign in front. Well, just the absolute value of -5 would get you 5, but then that negative sign stays with it. So this is actually equal to -5. My final answer for choice D is the absolute value of -4, and again, the absolute value of -4 is just +4. Which one has the greatest value? Here, it's choice D. Comparing 3 and 0 and -5 and 4, your greatest number is going to be 4. Okay, number 9. You record the daily low temperatures for 4 days at a ski lodge. What is the average low temperature? Okay, the word average means a few different things. To find someone's average, you have to add, here's your average, the word average. Oop, hello. The word average means that you have to add all the numbers up and divide by how many numbers you have. So on the side, I am going to add up all of these numbers in my calculator and get -16. And then I have to divide by how many numbers I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. So I'm going to divide my answer by 4. And that will get me my final answer of -4, which is choice G. Okay. Number 10, I want you to skip. If you tried it, you should get 2. But we're going to skip that one for right now because it's not something you're going to need on your quarterly. Okay, moving on. Number 11. I have to write this as a decimal. How do I change a fraction into a decimal? That's something we learned. We have to divide. Okay, how do I divide that? I have to set up a division bar. Who goes under? Well, this says 2 divided by 5. Again, who's dividing who? 2 is getting divided by 5. In order to do this, what will help me is adding a decimal point and some zeros. Now I'm going to continue my division. 5 can't go into 2. I'll bring my decimal point right up. But 5 can go into 20 4 times. Because 4 times 5 is 20. I subtract, I get 0, and I'm done. My final answer is 4/10. Okay, final answer for number 11, 4/10. Next one. The thickness of a book is 1/5. If Julia has a stack of 48 books, what is the height of the stack? Okay, well, the stack is 48 books. Each book is 1/15. Let's think about our answers. Let's think about operations. We have adding, we have subtracting, we have multiplying, and we have dividing. Couple choices here. Is the height of my stack going to be more than 1/15? Well, I have 48 books, so yeah. Makes sense, right? So I'm not going to be using subtraction. I'm not going to be using division. I want my number to be bigger. So 48 books. Am I going to be adding 1/15 and 48? Or am I going to be multiplying 1/15 by 48? Well, I have 48 books. And each book is 1/15. That's a lot of adding to do. Fastest way to do that is by multiplying. 1/15 times 48. Well, I can't multiply the way these are looking right now. In order to multiply, I'm going to need to change 48 into looking like a fraction so I can multiply these two fractions. 48 can be represented by a fraction by just putting it over 1. And now I'm going to multiply straight across. 48 times 1, 48. 15 times 1, 15. And if you really want to know what this is, you can just put it in the calculator. In the calculator, your final answer is 3. Alright, question number 13. Which of the following expression, what is the value of the following expression when x is negative 9 and y is negative 2 and z is 3? Okay, so here's my expression. Again, all about evaluating, substituting in my numbers in for these letters. So if I substitute in, I'm literally going to start writing x, oh, that's negative 9, minus z, oh, that's 3, divided by negative y. Okay, well, that's negative 2. Well, it's actually negative 2. Interesting. What are we going to do about that? Okay, we'll start with the numerator. In our calculator, just going to do that numerator. Numerator is negative 12. What is negative y? If y is negative 2, what's negative y? It's like the opposite. So instead of negative 2, I'm just going to write 2. But again, if you put that in your calculator, it would work out as well. So negative 2 is just 2. When I do this division, I'm going to get negative 6, which is choice A. Alright, number 14. Which of the following has the greatest value? Again, greatest value. I want the highest number. Oh, this time I'm given just numbers to plug in. So in my calculator, I'm just going to plug these in nice and carefully because each one has slightly different signs. Some are minus, some are minus negative, some are negatives minus. So be careful. If you plug these in the calculator, you should get negative 4. You should get positive 14. This one will get you negative 14. And this one will get you 4. Now, if you're telling me you got an answer that's a little different from here, then just plug it back in your calculator real carefully and make sure you get it. Alright, which one's the highest? Well, 4 and negative 4, nope, those are out. And I have negative 14 and positive 14. Positive 14 will be the highest number. So number 14, final answer, G. Find the sum below. This is easy, especially if you have your calculator. I'm just going to jam this right in your calculator. You should get negative 2 and 3/4. Again, double check your answer. Make sure you're typing it in your calculator correctly. Alright, next one says, what is the area in square inches of a rectangle? Alright, area is a clue word here. Area is a formula that you learned last year. So let's see if we can remember it. Here's my shape. It only has 2 dimensions. Again, it's a 2-dimensional shape. It's flat. It has a and a. And just knowing what those 2 dimensions are called will help you remember the formula. Area in square inches. Area is length times width. Hope you remembered that formula. So now I'm just going to take the 2 numbers and I'm going to multiply them. Area is length times width. And again, because multiplication is commutative, it doesn't really matter which order I multiply them in. I could multiply 3 and 2/5 times 2 and 1/4 also. But they will get me the same answer. Your final answer should be 7 and 13/20, which is choice H. Again, double check. Final answer for 16, choice H. Next one, which one has the following, which of the following has the greatest value? Again, man, a lot of questions like this. Okay, well, some of them are decimals and some of them are fractions. It's probably going to be helpful, I think, to change them all into decimals. So what we're going to do here, what's the absolute value of 4 and 4/10? That's just 4 and 4/10. The absolute value of negative 4 and 28/100? That's 4 and 28/100. Alright, I'm going to change this into a decimal before I start taking the absolute value. So in my calculator, I'm going to do negative 4 and 3/5, second fraction decimal button. Excuse me for my coughing. So I'm going to really be taking the absolute value of negative 4 and 6/10, which is just 4 and 6/10. This guy, 9/2. I can just divide 9 divided by 2. And I'm going to get 4.5. But again, this one's a little tricky because the absolute value is around the 4.5 and the negative sign is out in front. That equals negative 4.5. Now, which one has the highest value? What I would do is I would line them all up vertically. Notice I added a couple zeros in here to help me even out my lined up decimals. Well, I can automatically cross out one choice because that negative number is not going to be the greatest value. And now by comparing each column, I can stop right here and see, 6 is bigger than 2 and 4. So that's going to be my final answer. That one has the greatest value, 4 and 6/10. All right, I'm back. Number 18. A board is 6.5 feet long. You cut off a 1 3/4 foot piece and a 2 2/3 foot piece. How much of the original board is left? A lot of clue words in here. They're all saying the same thing. Cut off, left, that's subtract. All right, so I have my original board and then I cut off these two pieces. So I'm just going to write that as one big subtraction problem. 6.5 minus 1 3/4 minus 2 2/3. And again, going right to the calculator with this information, and you are going to get 2 1/12, letter H. All right, next one, number 19. A truck driver drove 49 miles in 1 1/3 hours. What is the average speed in miles per hour? Again, this word per is a good clue word. However, it could mean multiplying. It could mean dividing. The question is, how do you figure out which one it is? Which answer is going to make the most sense? All right, so let's try it. If I do 49 divided by 1 1/3, I'm going to get 36 3/4. If I multiply the two numbers, I'm going to get 65 1/3. Again, these answers represent miles per hour. So in 1 hour, this says that I would drive about 36 miles. This answer says in 1 mile, I would drive 65 miles. Well, look at this. If I go back to the problem, I drove 49 miles in 1 1/3 hours. There's no way I could have driven 65 miles in just 1 hour. So the correct answer is going to have to be the one where I divided. So the correct answer is going to be choice B, 36 3/4. Because dividing makes the most sense. Number 20. When working overtime, an auto mechanic gets paid 1.5 times the normal hourly wage. Overtime is the amount of time worked beyond 40 hours a week. The auto mechanic's normal hourly wage is $21. Last week, the auto mechanic worked 46 hours. Okay, part A says, write an expression to represent the amount of money earned last week. Explain your reasoning. All right, lots of information going here. I'm going to go back and reread it. So we're talking about overtime. Overtime is when I work beyond 40 hours a week. Okay, so last week I did do that. How many hours did I work beyond my 40 hours? Well, here's the 40 hours, and I worked an additional 6 hours. That's going to be considered the overtime. Okay, so now let's talk about just getting paid to work. I worked 40 hours, and I get paid $21 per hour. That's my hourly wage. So I worked my 40 hours, and I worked $21 per hour. I'm going to multiply those two together. My hours and how much I get paid per hour. Okay. Now, I have to add that to my 6 hours of overtime pay. Okay. I still get paid $21 per hour, except I also get paid extra overtime 1.5 times that amount. 1.5 times the normal hourly wage. Okay, so this whole expression is representing how much money I earned. That's it. I can leave it like that. It's just as an expression. Second part says evaluate this expression. Evaluate, again, find the value of. All right, so just this part, 40 times $21, that's going to get me $840, plus 6 times $21 times 1.5 for my time and a half. And I'm just going to add those two up. Final answer, $1,029. Learned a lot of money last week. Again, very important to learn this. This is a basic skill that you need to know. You need to make sure your boss is paying you the correct amount, especially if you work overtime. That's why so many people like to work overtime, because you get paid extra money. 1.5 times as much as you would normally get. Okay. Number 21. Which of the following equations is equivalent to the expression negative 5 times 3x minus 8? Oh, these are parentheses. What do these parentheses mean? Look at those. There's parentheses and there's a number outside of it. What does that mean? That means multiplying. And this is one of our properties. You remember what it is? The distributive property. Distribute means give out. When I am giving out, I am using the operation of multiplying. Negative 5 times 3x. Negative 5 times negative 8. So I'm using my distributive property. Here it is, my distributive property. I'm doing negative 5 times times 3x. And that's going to get me negative 15x. And then I have to do negative 5 times negative 8. And that's going to get me a positive 40. My final answer is going to be a combination of those two answers. Negative 15x plus 40. Choice B. Again, make sure everything's written down on your paper. Number 22. Which of the following is in order from least to greatest? Okay, let's take a look at these. Lots of different ones. There's some absolute values in here. It's not easy to pick out the answer right away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one individually. Alright, F starts with 11. Okay, well that's just 11. Absolute value of 4, well that's 4. Absolute value of negative 2, that's 2. Wait a minute, this isn't in order from least to greatest. That's a bigger number, so F's out. Least to greatest. Okay, let's keep going. Let's start with G. 0, that's just 0. Absolute value of negative 2, that's 2. Absolute value of 4, that's 4. Negative 6, oh, that's not in order. Alright, up to H. Negative 6, that stays the same. 0, that stays the same. Absolute value of negative 2, that's 2. Absolute value of 4, that's 4. And 11. Hey, negative 6, 0, 2, 4, 11. Those are in order from least to greatest. Done. Let's double check this last one just in case. Negative 6, that's just negative 6. Absolute value of 4, that's 4. Absolute value of negative 2, that's 2. Here's where they come out of order. So it's not I either. Alright, next one. What is the value of this expression below? Again, PEMDAS comes into play because I have multiple operations. I have division, I have multiplying. Well, PEMDAS says which one comes first. Oh, don't get tricked. There's parentheses here. So I have to do these parentheses first. Sorry, technical difficulties. Alright, so I have to do these parentheses first in order of PEMDAS. Negative 3 and 5/10 times 2, that's negative 7. Negative 58.8 divided by negative 7. You getting your calculator? You doing it? That's be a positive 8 and 4/10. Sorry for my sloppy handwriting. Alright. Next one. Factor out the coefficient. Coefficient. Again, the word coefficient, like co-worker. Someone who works with a variable. Oh, well there's my variable, the letter D. And there's my variable, the letter Z. The coefficient is a 2. And the coefficient here is 36. So I'm going to separate 2D and 6 And I'm going to factor out the coefficient. That means I need to separate the 2. So 2d is just like 2 times d. Now 6, how can I represent that as 2 times something? 2 times what gets you 6? That's 3. Now that these are in common, my final answer will have 2 out in the front. We'll have a d, we'll have a 3, and my final answer, just like my original problem, will have a plus sign in it. My final answer is 2 parentheses d plus 3. Second question again. I'm going to break up my 36z, my 2 terms, and my 108. Okay, so I'm going to do 36 times z. That's 36z. Again, I want to make 108 represented by 36 times something. Okay, well, I don't know that fact. I don't know about you. So I'm just going to divide these two in my calculator. 108 divided by 36, and that'll get me that missing number. Missing number is 3. Again, since these are the two numbers I have in common, that's the number that's going to be written out in front of my parentheses. What's left over is a z and a 3. And again, my original problem has a minus sign, so my final answer will have a minus sign as well. 36 times z minus 3. These are a whole bunch of different answers, and Miss Sforza and Miss Katowski will be happy to give you the answers to those. I'm not going to do them just because they're quick drill calculator problems. Alright. A loon is flying at a height of 10 feet above the lake. Keyword above. The loon dives into the water to catch a fish at a depth of 6 feet. Okay, so let's imagine this. Here's my water. Yes, I know it's red. My loon is 10 feet above the lake. And he's diving down under the water to a depth of 6 feet to get a fish. Well, just by looking at this picture can really help me see what the change in elevation was. He went from a positive 10 all the way down here to a negative 6. Well, I see two answers that sort of make sense. 16 and negative 16. The question is, what did it change? Did he go up 16 or down 16? Well, this picture clearly shows he went down 16 feet. So negative 16 feet. Okay, next one. What is the following is the sum of 1/2 and negative 2/3? Again, this is one of those, just put it in the calculator question, and Miss Forza and Miss Katowski will get you the answer. The word sum, you just need to know what that means in order to put the correct problem in your calculator. Sum means add. So you are putting this problem in your calculator, and you're going to get the answer. Okay, moving on. Find the sum or difference. This is what we talked about in the past couple days. The only time I can add is when I have like terms. So I'm going to circle the like terms, or box them out, up to you. In my calculator, I'm going to do 3 and negative 4. What is 3 plus negative 4, or 3 minus 4? That's negative 1. The like term x is going to stay with it. Now I'm going to continue on. I'm going to box the next two. Negative 5 and a positive 1. Negative 5 plus 1, negative 4. And that's my final answer. Alright, keep it going. Same concept. Don't let those decimals freak you out. I have negative 2 and 1/10 k, and I have 7k. In my calculator, I can do this out in hand. I'm going to have to do it right now because I don't have a calculator handy with me. I'm going to have to different sign subtract. Oop, that's not an 8. That's a 4. Alright, I get positive 4.9k. Ooh, sorry, my k's off. And then I have a negative 2 and a positive 5. Negative 2 plus 5 in my calculator gets me a positive 3. Final answer, 4 and 9/10 k plus 3. Next one's a subtraction problem. These two are both subtraction problems. In order to do a subtraction problem, I have to find follow my subtraction rule. Leave, change, inverse. Leave, change, inverse. I have to do that before I do any kind of combining. Leave, change, inverse. The opposite of 3 is negative 3. The opposite of minus 4m is plus 4m. I'm going to do this one while I'm at it. I'm going to leave 6c plus 4, change it to a plus sign, change 8c to negative 8c, change negative 5 to plus 5. So far, so good. Again, one of the most common mistakes is not changing the first term. We see this sign because it's very obvious. Negative 4, plus 4. But this positive 3 kind of gets left out. Make sure you're changing it to negative 3. And make sure you're changing positive 8 to negative 8. Now I'm going to combine the like terms. Here's 2m and positive 4m. That makes 6m. And then I have positive 7 and a negative 3. That makes positive 4. Final answer, 6m plus 4. Next one, 6c, negative 8c. Different sign, subtract. Calculator will do the work for you. Negative 2c. Positive 4 and a positive 9 gets me a positive, positive 4 and positive 5 gets me a positive 9. Final answer, negative 2c plus 9. Ooh, we're getting near the end, are we? Yep, that's the last one. Eastside Bowling charges $2.25 for shoes and $3 per game. Westside Bowling charges $1.75 for shoes and $2.50 per game. Write an expression in simplest form that represents how much more, that's a clue word, Eastside Bowling charges than Westside Bowling. Alright, let's get all the Eastside stuff together. Eastside charges $2.25 for shoes and plus $3 per game G. That means each game costs $3. That's why I put the G right next to the $3. Cool. So that's my Eastside Bowling. That whole expression. Now I have Westside Bowling. Okay, my Westside Bowling costs $1.75 for shoes and $2.50 per game G. Again, the $2.50 and the G are related to each other because each game costs $2.50. That's why I'm going to be multiplying these two. Alright, again, that whole expression represents my west side. How much more? Now, that's a common misconception that more always means add. How much more? If I'm comparing, even if you take away all this other stuff, here's this price for shoes, here's this price for shoes. How much more is this than that? Well, it doesn't mean add them. It means figure out how much more it is. What's the difference? Are you comparing them? So it's going to be subtraction. So I'm making this one big subtraction problem. We just talked about it. In order to do a subtraction problem with like terms, I have to leave, change, inverse. 225 plus 3G plus negative $1.75 minus 250G. Again, positive 1.75, negative 1.75. Positive 250, negative 250. Alright, now go right into the like terms. 225 is a constant all by itself. Negative 1 75/100 is also a constant all by itself. Doing a little calculator action on the side. Hope you are too. Different signs I have to subtract. I'm going to get 0.5. Positive, because this one's the bigger one. Now I have to do positive 3G. Oh, I should have circled that, sorry. Positive 3G, negative 250G. When I subtract those, I get positive 0.5, and now I got to stick a G next to it. Can I add these two together? They look really similar, however, they are not like terms because this has a G on it and this does not. So my final simplified answer is going to have to be 5/10 plus 5/10 G. Alright, thanks for watching the video. I hope you had a good time studying. And good luck on your quarterly. I should be back on on Thursday, and that's when your quarterly is. Quarterly is Thursday. Hope you had a good day. Bye.